lovelies. High hurdle of forgiveness. Let's talk about it. Jesus, coffee. Heard a great message yesterday from Pastor Rod. Kind of want to expound on it this week in many areas. And it's kind of a good pushover from last week where we talked a lot about love. Love is greater than all. It's beyond all. It's above all. But when we talk about love, we have to talk about the greatest expression of love. We talked about what love was, how, Christ wrapping himself in flesh, it was an embodiment of love. But let's talk about the greatest expression of love, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness is, and I've done videos on forgiveness before about, the symbology between dropping a seed in soil, and we can either pick up that seed and forgive and throw that seed away, or we can push that seed down into the soil, water it, cultivate it, let it grow, and that seed becomes bitterness. Very ugly, ugly root that takes place in our heart. But let's talk about the high hurdle of forgiveness. Anybody who's ever done any sports realizes that high hurdles are really tough to do. This guy never jumped them. It was not a track and field guy. It was not a runner. So, but hurdles themselves attempted and very difficult, let alone a high hurdle. So when we get hurt, what do we do with that seed? What do we do with forgiveness? Because forgiveness, when we're hurt, it causes brokenness, right? That relationship is now broken because you've been hurt. So we can either choose to forgive them, which our pride doesn't always want to let us do. Especially if we've been hurt, we're like, but if they don't come to you and seek your forgiveness, we'll talk about that. If you're hurt, you can choose to seek reconciliation in that. You can choose to forgive that person, right? It's a choice. A lot of times our flesh doesn't want that to happen. Doesn't want to allow that to happen. We want to turn around and rear up and react to that hurt because we have a flesh. We have a sin nature, right? So I want to go into a passage in Colossians 3 because we've been in Colossians 3 because this is where a lot of this comes from. But I want to go through Colossians 3 verses 12 through 14. I want you to hear this, guys. So therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, which is patience, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you must also do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. So, right there, right? So we have to put on meekness, humility, patience, bearing with one another, right? How do we bear something? We bear something when we carry something, right? We endure something. So when we bear something, so we're bearing that burden when we've been hurt, right? So we can choose to forgive that person. But what did it say there first? Forgive as Christ has forgiven you. So, kind of sounds like we're supposed to model that behavior, right? What's being a Christian? Modeling Christ-like behavior, right? So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to model that forgiveness. We're supposed to give forgiveness as we've been forgiven. It's not always easy to do, is it? No. Your flesh is like, I'm not going to forgive them. They didn't say they were sorry. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. That's going to be a whole separate video. But what he's saying there is that we're to forgive as we have been forgiven. Doesn't matter. Christ got hurt. Christ gets hurt every time we sin. He doesn't like sin. He went to the cross to pay for it. He felt every one of our sins. He felt that pain in every one of our sins. So he knows. He doesn't like it. But yet, what did he do when he was stretched out on that cross? He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He said, forgive them. So he forgave us of our debts as we were sitting there beating him, tormenting him, putting stripes in his body, and pounding nails into his arms and his hands and his feet. And he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So it's what we're supposed to do because he did it for us. He forgave us. That cross was our forgiveness. That blood that he spilled, our forgiveness. So who are we to not forgive? And again, guys, you've heard me say many times, forgiveness, holding on to forgiveness and not giving forgiveness as we've been forgiven is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So when we hold on to that and we begin that cultivation process of bitterness with that seed in the soil, we're drinking the poison and we're hoping the other person dies. But really the one it's killing is us. It's killing our soul. It's killing our vertical connection. Because when we don't forgive, forgiveness, by the way, is a command. It's a command. In Matthew 6, what does it say in Matthew 6? Let's just turn there real quick. Matthew 6, the passage I'm referencing is the model prayer, right? So this is a command. This is what he told his disciples, and this is what he told those. By the way, Matthew 6, we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount. So this was a command. He was telling them how they should pray. But hear this. You guys know it. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done. It's both requests on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Again, a request. Forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Oh. You mean we're supposed to forgive? Yeah, it's a command, guys. It's a command. We're asking for forgiveness as we forgive our debtors. Guys, forgiveness is a releasing of a debt. To forgive means to release from a debt. So when we're sinned against somebody, we have a debt against somebody, right? We can choose to forgive that debt and release that person from that debt by saying, I forgive you. Or we can hold that debt against them. Or certificate of debt. I got it right here. You owe me. I owe you one. I owe you. Yeah. No. So release that debt as he released that debt for us. And we'll talk a whole video about all of the ways and what forgiveness looks like. And we'll go through a bunch of passages of what his forgiveness looks like to us. So, it's a high hurdle. Are you willing to jump it? Are you willing to? Or are you going to look at it and go, whoop, nope, no way, can't do it, won't do it. I'm not even going to attempt that. Nope. It's a choice you have to make. Think about your relationships. Spend some time with the Lord in prayer and ask him to bring some relationships where, one, there's either some brokenness that you need to forgive others, and two, good morning, Sherry. What's up, sis? One, is there relationships you need to forgive? Or two, are there relationships where you need to ask for forgiveness? Where you need to be the one seeking forgiveness? That person may have already dropped that debt. And again, we'll get into that. That's going to be a whole separate video on what if they don't ask for forgiveness. What do we do? That's a whole separate video. So spend some time, ask him to bring those relationships to your heart. And when he does, journal them, write them down. And bring those to the cross. If it's not a situation where they've sought forgiveness, take it to the cross and lay it at the foot of the cross. That's between you and Christ. I forgive that person. So we'll get into that. I love you guys. I know he loves you guys like crazy. Agape. Incomprehensible, unfathomable love that he pours down. And he poured it down in forgiveness of us. So greatest expression. So are we going to express that love in forgiveness of others or seeking forgiveness? Because we have a sin nature. So we screw up and we need to ask for forgiveness. So are we going to seek forgiveness? Because often that's the greatest witness to a non-believer is when we screw up, to go to them and seek forgiveness from them. And a lot of that looks like, look, I asked the Lord for his forgiveness because I'm so sorry I screwed up. I asked him for his forgiveness. But now I need to ask you for yours. Will you please forgive me? That's a great witness because you're showing them that forgiveness comes here and it goes out. Gee, didn't we talk about that with love? Right? Love comes down. We get to be the sprinklers to send that love out. Same with forgiveness, right? Because it's the greatest expression of love. Forgiveness comes down, so therefore we're to give it and seek it when we make those mistakes. It's a tough step. And again, is that the hurdle you're willing to cross? Is that the hurdle you're willing to jump? So we'll be back tomorrow with whatever Dad wants to talk about. Love you guys.